in America, justice being dealt in a Kansas courtroom just moments ago. Brett Seacat, a former cop, found guilty of first-degree murder for killing his wife, shooting her in the head and then setting the house on fire, trying to make it look like a suicide. Meanwhile, they have two little boys, 2 and 4 years old. They were in the house at the time this fire was set. That's how dangerous all of this was and how callous and cold it was by this convicted killer, Brett Seacat. Let me bring in John Manuelian, great attorney, joining us. Are you in Miami today, John?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Vin. What was that?
Are you in Miami today?
Yes, I am. I am in Miami.
All right.
How'd you know that?
I know these things. Let's talk about this, John. This is a cop convicted of first-degree murder, killing a woman, staging it, trying to make it look like a suicide. What do you think life in prison for the rest of his life is going to be like?
It's going to be tough. I mean, this is a guy who thought, obviously, he could get away with killing his wife. I think that he's going to have a lot of time to think about what he did, and he's going to have a lot of regrets. He's got 2 young boys, and they no longer have a father. They no longer have a mother, and it's all his fault. And I'm sure that he's thinking about his rage and his actions, and is going to have a lot of time to think about what he did and how he affected everybody's life, including his beautiful wife, Vashti.
Judge Hatchett also with us. Judge, do you think he has to be placed in protective custody? Because we got some criminals in there might not think too kindly on a cop.
I'm telling you, this is going to be tough for him. And I was just thinking that this may be a fate worse than death because, you know, you have to assume that in the general population there are people that he has been part of a conviction of. There are going to be people who have heard about this story who are going to resent the fact that he killed his wife, put his children at risk. I think his life in prison is going to be a living hell. And so it may end up that he may have to be in isolation and protection. I mean, any way you cut this, he is going to have a tough life. Yeah.
John, you know, there are criminals in our courtrooms every day, and then they do horrible, horrible things. This one I'm looking at, and I'm having such a difficult time understanding it. From your perspective as a criminal defense attorney, do you have any other better sense of how someone can take a life? You've got a beautiful wife. You've got beautiful children. Okay, something happens between the two of you where you have a falling out. She wants to leave you. You want whatever it is. How does someone go from law enforcement officer, father of 2 beautiful children, to a cold-blooded murderer?
Well, in this case, obviously, it was rage, but I've interviewed many, many clients, and I've come to know a theory that I call twisted reasoning. And what I mean by twisted reasoning is everybody that commits crimes has their own reasoning. To them, it seems logical. To them, it seems normal. And to them, there's justification to what they do. And they don't realize what they're doing is illegal, and not only illegal, but affects lives, and it's sociopathic behavior. And they don't see that until it's too late. So, you know, as far as Seacat's concerned, I'm sure in his mind, he thought he was doing it for the best interest of his children because he didn't want to be separated. He didn't want his wife in his life anymore, and he saw her as a complication. And by eliminating her from his life, he thought that his life would be uncomplicated. And again, being a police officer, he probably thought that he could do enough to manipulate the evidence to get away with the crime. But again, that's what I call twisted reasoning.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. August 5th is the sentencing, Judge. Yeah.
Yes.
What do you think Brett Seacat gets up in the court and acknowledges his own guilt?
I don't think he will. I think he has been down this path for so long. I think the most he'll do is say, I'm very sorry that she died. I think he'll continue to maintain this whole suicide thing because that's where he is, and I think that's where he has to stay. We all know it's a lie, but I think he's going to ride that on the way out. And
just wait for that appeal. Yeah. We always talk about the appeal after a conviction, but the reality is, John Manuelian, right? Criminal appeals don't generally go that well, do they?
They take a long time, Vinny, a very, very long time, and usually appeals are struck down. It's very hard to get an appeal granted. You have to show what's called reversible error. You have to show that you weren't granted a fair trial, that due process wasn't afforded to you. And in this case, the matter of the fact is he testified, which takes away a lot of his appellate rights because the jury had an opportunity to listen to him, to view his credibility, and obviously, based on the duration of the verdict, they did not find him credible, and based on the evidence in this case, they didn't find that what he said matched up with the evidence in this case as well.
Brett Seacat found guilty by the jury in Kansas, guilty of first-degree murder. And those jurors who found him guilty have all declined at this point to speak publicly about this case. And we'll keep you up to date with everything that's happening. Breaking news, Brett Seacat is now a convicted murderer. John Manuelian, how about Brett Seacat? As a police officer, do you think that was part of the problem with his arrogance, is that he was an insider and he thought he had it all figured out?
Well, if you're talking about his testimony and why he testified, I think the defense attorney probably made a good assessment that he is a good witness. I mean, if you think about it, Vinny, he answered most of the questions pretty logically. Why did you discard the hard drives? Why did you discard the phones? He said it was so that people wouldn't steal his identity. As a defense attorney, you're sitting down and you're talking with your client and you're saying, will the jury like my client? Will they believe my client? And I think this was a Hail Mary pass. I don't think they would have won the case without him. And I think they made an assessment that with him, at least they had a shot to explain to the jury and to see who Brett Seacat was, to see whether he's likable, to see whether he's somebody that you could, understand and be empathetic to. So without Brett Seacat's testimony, it was a slam dunk guilty. They had to put him on the stand.
Brett Seacat, guilty, first-degree murder. Let me go back to my dream team. John Manuelian, final word here as we're looking at, this is the end of a murder trial, but, you know, for the victims and the families, this will forever be a part of their lives, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is very unfortunate, and it's unfortunate that Brett had tunnel vision and he didn't have the foresight to look into the future and see how this is going to affect his two children, his family, his father, his mother. He disgraced himself. He disgraced everybody that he knows. And unfortunately, he let his rage get the best of him.
Yep. John Manuelian, thanks so much. Judge Hatchett, appreciate it as well.
Always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.